Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a brand new video. Today's video is going to be answering your questions. So we're going to do a Q&A today. I have been promising it for a little while. You will have to excuse my voice. I seem to have come down with a cold. Whether or not it is the same cold that Avery had, I do not know, but I'm full of a cold at the moment and I think you can hear it in my voice, so please excuse that. But I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to do a chill, sit down, a chatty video. For those of you that have been asking, Avery is doing much better than she was. She still is trying to shift a very nasty cough at the moment, so she's getting better though, aren't you, Puddin'? Also, if you can hear noises in the background, the boys are still home from school. They go back to school tomorrow. Little Madam goes back to nursery tomorrow, so that is the boys upstairs if you can hear them. Eli is currently colour coordinating all of his Lego, so that has kept him busy for most of the day. Anyway, I have been jotting down your guys' questions over the last couple of weeks, and I just thought that it's nice to have a Q&A every now and again here on my channel. And I think it's a good it's a good resource as well, because a lot of you guys have some really good questions and I feel like I can make this video somewhat informative as well, particularly when it comes to Avery. So let's get into it. There's a couple of kind of duplicate questions. More than one of you asked round about the same thing. So first of all, I have, why don't you use your car for appointments, and do you not drive? I do drive. I do have a driver's license and I also have a car. The reason why we don't drive to hospital appointments is because I am not overly comfortable driving with Avery in the back seat where I can't reach her. Because Avery is an aspiration risk, she can choke on her own secretions. Not only that, she also has epilepsy and she can get incredibly frustrated in the car, which can trigger both of those things. And when I say frustrated, she gets herself so worked up, she goes bright red, she ends up drenched from head to toe in sweat because of how worked up she is. And I just fear that she is more at risk of things like aspiration, which could then, you know, cause her to choke or lead to aspiration pneumonia, which is very likely to be what is causing this very horrible sounding cough at the moment. And because she has epilepsy, she is always at risk of seizures. Now, if I'm in the car with Avery driving and she's in the back and she started fitting or she started choking and there is nowhere to pull over, I don't know what I'm supposed to do at that point. I mean, obviously I can turn on my hazards and stop the car, but the thought of that, especially, you know, depending on what kind of road you're on, you could be on a motorway where there's no hard shoulder. The thought of that gives me so much anxiety, and this is the main reason why we moved to live closer to the hospital, because now I can actually just catch the bus to the hospital, so I'm not going to miss any of Avery's hospital appointments. Now, I'm not going to say that that's going to be a permanent thing. I really hope that one day in the future I can get out and about in the car with Avery, especially now that she's getting a little bit older. And I say she seems to be getting a bit more settled in the car. However, I've always been sat in the back with her. Usually it's Josh that's driving and I'm sat in the back with her, or on the really rare occasion it's vice versa. But there's always someone in the back with her keeping her distracted so that she doesn't get too worked up. Avery may end up coughing on and off throughout this video. Sadly, this is what she's been like for the past few days. She is just trying to clear all the nasties that are on her chest from her chest infection. Okay, you'll have to excuse me for a minute, guys. I am just gonna have to give this little lady a bit of suction. We are back and sounding much better now. She just had some gack that she couldn't clear herself, so we needed to give you a little bit of a helping hand, didn't we, Puddin'? The next question is, would hydrotherapy help for Avery? And yes, absolutely, I 100% think it would. Avery is currently on a waiting list. She has been referred for hydrotherapy. We are just waiting for her to get a place, basically. A lot of Avery's conditions are quite hard on her muscles, so having them soak in water can be really soothing for Avery. So to kind of add therapy into the mix of a environment that is helping Avery's muscles relax can be really, really beneficial for children with cerebral palsy. Obviously I can't guarantee that it's going to work because we've not tried it yet, but from what we know about Avery and warm water is that it does relax her. So I've really got high hopes for it, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it does wonders for her. One of the questions I had was, does Avery have a preferred side? And I did kind of ask if that was to do with a side that she prefers to lie on, or maybe a side that she is more dominant with. In terms of laying, I don't think she has a preference. But she definitely has more use of her left side, which is a little bit strange because her left side is also the most affected by the spasticity. Her physiotherapist said that it is quite odd that that would be the side that she has more use out of, but it is her left side that we tend to see her reaching with more. She also tends to kick a lot more with her left leg, so I have no idea why that is. But her left side definitely works a whole lot better than the right side. Will you ever take Avery's stander to nursery so that she can be in it there? At the moment, we do not have a stander at nursery, and that is purely because she's not at nursery for long enough. When she is in an educational setting for longer, so for example 5 days a week full time, she would most likely have a stander there, and then the nursery or most likely school would be able to do Avery's therapy within the stander then. Now in terms of school, we are still a little bit of a ways off, but we are hoping to have Avery in a special educational school, and they do kind of cater a lot of their lessons to the individual children, and with Avery her therapies will come as part of that package. That's going to be a whole other journey when we start thinking school, but yes, Avery will have a stander in an educational setting when she is in one for much longer. At the moment she is only in nursery for 6 hours a week, and I am still going with her, so she's home more than she is in education at the moment, so it makes sense for her stander to be at home because she'll get more use out of it here. Someone asked me if I could show Avery's bow collection and if I could do a bow count. So if you're not new to my channel, you'll probably know that usually Avery always has a bow in her hair. She doesn't today, and that is only because she's been in the bath. She's in a nice fresh pair of pajamas and we're not going anywhere. There's really no need for a bow today, and she's still unwell, so I've been kind of avoiding some of the frills. But I will put an overlay showing you Avery's bow collection. We do have a bow organizer that I bought from Amazon, and it just helps keep all of her bows in one place, and it hangs on the door, so it's not really taking up any space that we would miss. I did count the bows, and the total came to 125. You have 125 bows, Pudding. So she definitely has one to match every outfit, but I started Avery's bow collection before she was even born, and as a matter of fact I've parted with a fair few of them as well. So she used to have more, but we had a lot of kind of duplicates in colour. So yeah, she has a lot of bows. It's kind of like her trademark at this point. Okay, Pudding, I think we're gonna have to come back to this a little bit later, aren't we? Hey, Missy Moo? Hey? I think we need a bit of chest physio. You are struggling, aren't you? Yeah. Okay, it's a little bit later now. We've had to change settings. Avery was just not having a good time, sat on my lap, bless her. She is really, really struggling to get over this chest infection. She's not on antibiotics anymore. I think the kind of illness itself has kind of gone away. She's not spiking temperatures anymore. but she just has a lot of build up on her chest that she really struggles to get up, and it's kind of a constant cycle of patting her on the back, chest physio, suction, trying to get her upright. But really the only time that she is comfortable and not coughing is either when she's laying on her back, which does make sense because the secretions kind of stop and settle there, but they will always come back up when it's once we sit her up, or when she's asleep. So fingers crossed this doesn't last too much longer. So a little bit later now, I am upstairs and wearing, by the way, my lounge set of dreams. If you didn't watch my last vlog, Josh actually bought this for me as a gift from M&S, and oh my goodness, I feel like I'm in a cloud. It is so comfortable. Anyway, I did actually try and answer this question about 6 times when I was downstairs with Avery, but every time I went to talk she just had another coughing fit, so we had to postpone. So the question was, can you explain more why they can't straighten Avery's leg over time, and can surgery help? So that won't make a lot of sense to any of you if you don't follow my channel, but Avery's left leg in particular doesn't straighten all the way. The spasticity has stopped it from being able to do that. Both of her legs are starting to get tight, but her left has also always been worse. Can they straighten her leg over time? By they, I assume you mean kind of therapists and doctors. We can definitely improve her leg if that is what the leg is going to do, if that makes sense. So what we can be doing is getting Avery in her stander, doing her stretches, putting her gaiters on at night. Those things we are already doing. She can also have Botox in her leg, which we are still on a waiting list for. And then there is medication, which is the baclofen. Those are the things that we can be doing. But the way her physio explained it to me is that you're never really going to be able to fix it. These are the things that are happening because of the cerebral palsy, and cerebral palsy is going to progress no matter what you do. What you can do is try and prolong the time before it gets worse. So we can keep doing all of these things, it's never going to fix it. So we could get her leg to a point where it straightens beautifully, but as soon as we stop doing those therapies, as soon as we stop doing those things, the likelihood is it will just go back to the way it was. It's not something that's going to be fixed. Yes, surgery is an option if the leg continues to get much worse whilst we are doing all of these things. So if we feel that nothing is working and her leg or both legs are progressively getting worse, then surgery will be an option. And not a doctor, so I'm not 100%, but I am pretty sure what they're actually operating on is the tendons, because it's the tendons that actually shorten. So we may get to that point. At the moment we are doing what we can and waiting for what we are waiting for, basically. So hopefully the Botox will help. Everything that we are doing, so the stander, the gaiters is quite a new thing though, I will say, but the leg is still continuing to get worse even with those things. Sadly, that is just the nature of Avery's condition. Some things we're just not going to be able to prevent. I thought that this was a pretty good question. Do the boys ever question about Avery's medical conditions, and how do you handle it? Now, when Avery first went into the hospital, obviously that would have been a massive thing for the boys, because you know, all of a sudden me and my husband were away from home, and their newborn baby sister that had come home was gone again, and we were gone at the hospital for about 3 weeks. Now, I was incredibly nervous about how I would kind of broach the subject with the boys, because I knew they were going to have questions. To be honest, they didn't question it as much in the beginning as I thought they would. But the way I explained it to them in the early days was just that Avery was very poorly and she needed to be in hospital because she was poorly. Now obviously it's not like she came home from hospital because she was better. So we kind of continue just to say to the boys that Avery was very fragile. She was still poorly, and that kind of sufficed for quite a while. Now the boys are getting older, they're getting much more intuitive, they're getting cleverer, and for me, I feel the best way to broach Avery's conditions with the boys is to mention things in passing when I feel like the time is right. So if Eli or Zach ever have a question and I find that it kind of relates to Avery's conditions in any way, so they might not be talking about Avery in particular, they might be talking about someone else, they might have noticed somebody else with disabilities, I use that as kind of my my green flag to bring up Avery and her conditions. And I'll say things like, so Avery's brain is poorly, and I'll maybe explain to Zach in particular that Avery's brain doesn't think like a lot of other children, because I know that Zach will relate to that, because his brain doesn't think like a lot of other children. And that's kind of how I've tried to explain his autism to him as well. I've told him that you know, most people will think one way, but Zach finds it easier to think a different way to most people. So they do know that Avery has a brain injury. I have used that terminology with them. Whether or not they understand that, I don't know. They do know that Avery may not be able to walk or talk. They have asked, Eli especially, because Eli is very curious, asks, will Avery ever walk, will Avery ever talk? And my answer to him is my answer to everybody else that asks that question: we don't know. But I also kind of make a point to say to them that it doesn't matter if Avery can't walk or talk, because we're still going to make sure that she's happy, and we're still going to make sure that she gets the same experiences as they do. And to be honest, I could not have asked for a better reaction from the boys. I am so proud of how well they've adapted to Avery. They are so protective of her, and the fact that she has disabilities doesn't waver the way they are towards her at all. They are so affectionate, they love her so much, they love showing her off, they love kind of pointing her out to all of their friends, and they'll say, this is my baby sister. They seem to be really proud of her as well, which is really sweet. And I suppose I just have a really lucky dynamic. I can't speak for anyone else, but I am just very lucky in the sense that the boys have adapted beautifully and they just love Avery so much. Another one of you asked how I met Josh, how long we've been married, what he does. So in other words, I'm gauging that you just want a little bit more information about Josh and me. So I think I have actually answered this. I think I answered this in my last Q&A, but Josh and I, we don't have a big romantic story on how we met. We met on a dating app, and we talked over text for a while, and then we talked over phone for a while, and our first date was actually a play date. So instead of making it this big awkward thing, we decided to meet up with our children at a play area, and that way he and I could kind of chat a little bit, maybe get to know each other, but then our children could go off and play. And it didn't make it a big thing, basically. It didn't feel like I was introducing the boys to this new man. It just felt like we had taken them to a play area, and that was kind of what it was about. So that is what we did for our first date, and Josh and I just continued to spend more and more time together after that. I ended up travelling up country to visit my brother about a week or so after we had met, and I think that gave us a little bit of time apart, because we had been seeing each other pretty much every day. It gave us a little bit of time apart to, I guess, see if we actually liked each other enough to the point where we were missing each other's company. And we were, and when I came home, we were pretty much inseparable ever since then. So that was the story on how we met. We have been married for just over 2 years. We have been together for just over 5 years. I have had the question come up in terms of our children, and we are very much a blended family, as you could probably tell. Zachary and Eli are my children, Marley is Josh's child, and Avery is mine and Josh's together. We had Avery about 5 months before we got married, and that was the plan. Well, that wasn't the plan initially. The plan was to get married first, and then we were going to have another baby, but then COVID hit, which postponed our wedding a year. So we should have been married 3 years at this point, but instead, because of everything that was going on, we decided to postpone our wedding a year, and we were going to see if we could welcome another baby into the world in that time. And that's how Avery was born. And yeah, she was born 5 months before the wedding, so I had quite the pressure getting back into my wedding dress, which did fit me perfectly before I fell pregnant with Avery, but I did manage it. So I'm not too sure how comfortable Josh would be with me giving too much detail on his work. He is a grounds worker, so he does a lot of manual labour. I mean, I know a lot of you have asked where Josh is in most of my videos. He's at work. He works full time, he works long hours, and he works really hard. So he isn't home for most of the day, he's not really home for most of the week. He's home for a few hours in the evening, and then he's home on the weekends, which is why you don't really see him very often, because most of the time I am filming within the week. This was a question I actually had over on Instagram, and it was, how much medication does Avery take just for cerebral palsy? And really, Avery's conditions kind of mould into one. She has cerebral palsy, she has dystonia, she has epilepsy, and she has severe reflux. Those are the conditions. She has more conditions than that, such as cerebral visual impairment, gastrostomy fed and whatnot. But those 4 conditions are the ones that she has medications for. So in terms of the cerebral palsy itself, the way I think of it is we're talking more about mobility and muscle tone. So really, she's only taking the one medication for that, and that is the baclofen. That is the medication that targets the muscle tone. She takes one medication at present for her dystonia, and that is her gabapentin. We are looking into adding a second medication for her dystonia, but we're still kind of in limbo with meds at the moment, just because of having to figure out her epilepsy meds, and she is on 2 of those at the moment. She's on Keppra and topiramate. And then she's on medication for her reflux, which is omeprazole. So really, for the cerebral palsy itself, it's only the one medication, but if you think of kind of that as a whole, and the fact that a lot of her conditions are kind of secondary to that one condition, they are all kind of because of the cerebral palsy, but for her tone itself, it is just the one medication, which is baclofen. So I have one more question, and more than one person asked this question actually. Will Avery complete your family? Could you handle an additional child? And are you interested in having more children? I think this is a really good question, because I feel like there must be, I mean, I'm not speaking for everyone, but I'm speculating. There must be a lot of fear surrounding growing your family if you already have a child with complex medical needs. Not only because of kind of the physical strain that would bring, but also the emotional side of it. Whatever trauma you may or may not have been through when your child kind of incurred their injury, whether that be through birth or after. Avery's brain injury was not caused by a labour or birth trauma. She went into a cardiac arrest when she was 3 days old. That doesn't mean to say that the pregnancy and the birth, the labour and all of that of another child wouldn't be incredibly terrifying to go into because of the trauma surrounding Avery's early days. It is something that Josh and I have talked about, and we've talked about it from all different angles. Effect on the boys, effect on Avery, effect on our physical and emotional well-being, if there would be any PTSD or kind of deep sort of terror related to trauma deep inside that would come up. We've talked about it all, and we've really kind of laid everything on the table with each other. And to be honest, that conversation really is only important between me and Josh because it is very personal to us. I know that there are a lot of families that have multiple children where their child with complex medical needs is not their youngest child, so they have gone on to have more children. And I do honestly feel like it is a very, very personal choice based on what you think you could cope with, if you could go through it again, and just your personal circumstances as well. In terms of the question, could I handle an additional child? 3 years ago, if someone had asked me if I could have coped with the situation I'm living in now, I don't think I would have said yes. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that watch my videos that wonder how I cope. I mean, some of you have asked me, you know, how do you cope? I don't know how you cope. And I just think human beings have this incredible ability to adapt. I know that some people find it easier than others, and I think luckily for me, I am just one of those people that is able to work well under pressure, and I am able to adapt very, very quickly. So life for me now is normal. Now, I'm not going to say it's not hard, but I also don't think for me it feels any harder than a completely different situation would feel hard for somebody else. I hope that makes sense. It feels like it didn't make sense coming out of my mouth, but it made sense in my head. So there's going to be lots of different scenarios in parenthood where people find, or parents find, the situation incredibly difficult, and it could be something as simple as potty training to something more complex like the kind of lifestyle that we have. And I just think that you adapt. I feel like I'm in a place where I do keep on top of everything pretty well, and I don't feel like I push myself too hard. I just feel like I get on with it, and that is my life. In terms of could I handle it, I feel like after the last 3 years and what life has thrown at me, I am pretty good at handling high pressure situations. Now the question itself on will Avery complete our family and do we want to have any more children, we are not against the idea, and I think I will leave that at that. So those were all of the questions that I was asked. If you do have any more questions kind of following on from this video, then leave a comment on one of my videos. I will try and answer it in the comment section. That is what I usually do anyway. It's just sometimes it is nice to have a bunch of questions thrown into one kind of space. So I hope you enjoyed it, and please hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, if you would like to follow us along on our journey. And I will see you guys in a few days with another video. Bye guys.